It's called the large glass, the Brian Bar Bachelors. When it was transported from some museum, I think in Pittsburgh, the upper frame had been shattered.
Yeah.
And he decided to leave it like that.
Yeah, it's
But
perfect.
you could recreate it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll fix that. Take it over to the auto body shop. Get it fixed.
Well, when you were making this part of the world, were you thinking of that Russian science fiction film, Alita, Queen of Mars?
I hadn't seen it yet, but I'd seen some stills from it. And when I finally did see it, it was really remarkable. And that lead actress, whose name I'm forgetting now, I'm sorry, but so cool. I think it's Dovzhenko's wife, Yuliana Sutsneva, whatever. I just read these names inwardly all the time. Never expected to have to say that in public, sorry. I don't know, like I started to say, I wasn't even a fan of silent film when I started making movies, but I started, when I watched silent film, realizing why they were put together that way, because there's a number of ways you can start out as a filmmaker. You can, if you want to be a commercial filmmaker, like Steven Soderbergh right out of the gate made Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and he announced, I'm going to be a filmmaker who changes his style with every film. You won't be able to tell it's me. More or less, I'm paraphrasing, and I'm sure his early films were very technically proficient, but maybe just not as good, his student films and things. I had that Buñuel approach. I wanted to come out of the gate with something that was as good as it gets right away, and if that meant playing to my strengths, my strengths were actually just my weaknesses. I didn't have any technical skill. I didn't have, I just sort of had some ideas, and so unfortunately I never did work. And there's a tendency, with really good fielders who can't hit to go out when they practice to go practice their fielding some more, and so I sort of did that, and I just kept practicing my primitivism and not working on conventional story making, and I just kept developing myself in that other direction, the one that took me further and further away from Hollywood.
Well,
I couldn't be further away now.
I think that's how you found your voice, because you have to almost work in the wilderness.
Yeah.
You know how to chop your own wood, how to be like, forage out there and find your way. And I think a lot of artists sort of, if they adopt some other technique, if they borrow it like a bad savings bond, and they make it their own, that's not what they're trying to say about what, they're not being true to themselves. And so at what point did you resonate, like when Neil Young first came out, well, not a Canadian.
It's from Winnipeg.
When he said it took him a long time before he found out no one sings like me, and I like it. No one plays guitar like him, and he can write songs that fit
I'm sure there are people that
voice.
said, dude's got to take some singing lessons.
But the same thing about Bob Dylan. So what did you know? It could have been unconscious, but what did you know? Or this is me. And
I think with my first few features, which definitely are primitive and things, I still sort of thought maybe the day would come when I'd be writing scripts that were a little more mainstream, and that I would get more technically proficient or would surround myself with people. But somewhere along the line, I forgot to write scripts that mattered to me, and around the time I shot Twilight of the Ice Nymphs, George had written that one. I didn't even understand it, and I had a crew, and I was shooting in 35 millimeters, so all of a sudden I was no longer holding the camera in my hands, and it wasn't about me in any way, and I just lost track, and it was when I just started teaching, and I was really depressed because I hadn't made a movie in a few years, that I just started working in Super 8. I definitely made a U-turn away from Hollywood. Like I just wanted to get away from 35 millimeter and go even, I started in 16 millimeter, but I went in the other direction, more primitive, and I was just started strip mining my autobiography at that point. I was just shameless. I even named my protagonist after myself so that I could shame myself, like for the horrible things I was now confessing. And the first time I did it is in a movie called Cowards Bend the Knee, which is very primitive, and I forgot to focus the camera for the whole thing. It's murky, it's full of ellipses. I had Post-it notes all over my apartment. More ellipses, more holes in the story, I was, thinking, are there enough ellipses? And so I would remove paragraphs, not at random, but I would just say, no, there have to be bigger gaps, and I have to make the viewers try to just feel it more like music rather than understand it from point to point and things like that. And I started to feel good, and I really outed myself too as a coward, as a sniveling douche. And it felt really good. And so the next movie I decided to do that, and it was about my family. And unfortunately, it's okay to out yourself, but I outed my whole family, and they got really mad at me, and I realized that's different.
My Winnipeg?
That was this third one in which I sort of did that. It was this movie, Brand Upon the Brain, but I involved like my mom and my sister and stuff, and I was thinking, this is going to be cathartic for me to drag everybody into this thing, and when my family wasn't speaking to me for about 2 years, I realized I better be careful. But then I just couldn't resist doing it one more time with my Winnipeg, because I realized I'd been commissioned. Once again, I love restrictions, I love assignments, I love low budgets. They're so liberating. They force you to make sensible and creative, and I'm not the most creative person, but they give you an excuse too. I didn't have very much money, so you have an excuse. It's great to have an excuse. Who doesn't want an excuse? I couldn't afford it. But when I was commissioned to make my Winnipeg, and I was told to make it my Winnipeg, not just Winnipeg, a documentary on Winnipeg. I realized, well, if you're making a movie about your hometown, that your hometown is really inseparable from your home, and your home, it is your home, and your home is inseparable from your family. So that the movie really had to be about all three of those. And so...
And this has been quaintly called the Me trilogy?
I guess so, yeah. It's enough me already. And certainly, first person singular has been used probably more in the in social media now in the last minute than it's been used in all the centuries leading up to the internet age.
What can we should probably connect up with this Bing and Bella.
Oh, Bing and Bella is an odd thing. It was part of an installation. I made a bunch of these lost film adaptations in 2010 to open up the Bell Lightbox. I got a commission just to make an installation, to project some things. And so I did make some lost, like a lost Mitsuguchi film and a lost Murnau film, and they were just projected on various sheets in the lobby. But I sneaked in some other losses. And this Bing and Bella, it's in silent intertitle cards that come up here. There is a music score, and if we could play it nice and loud, that'd be great. It's only 3 minutes long, but it comes from the fact that I learned years earlier that, I can't remember when, around the turn of the century, I learned that I think when I first went online, so around 2000, I learned that Bing Crosby and Bela Lugosi, two of my favorite pop culture figures from the olden times, are actually buried right next to each other in Culver City. And I was thinking of Rudolph Valentino's famous Woman in Black, who would come and like once a year and come and mourn at his grave, and no one knew who she was, and she would sit there and keep a vigil and lay a flower. And I just thought, what if someone came to Bing Crosby and Bela Lugosi's graves and couldn't make up her mind who to mourn over, and I sort of thought, this is going to be my first Hollywood movie. I'm going to go to Hollywood, and I'm going to go to the cemetery, and I'm going to like chat up some aspiring starlet, and I'm going to get her to throw herself on a couple of graves for a while, and then we'll go have a rap party, something like that. It sounds like a good idea. But I ended up shooting it in a warehouse in Winnipeg. I just downloaded some images of the cemetery from the internet. Anyway, we can watch it.
So let's take a look at Bing and Bella.